Okay, welcome back to the stream. Uh, I'm playing with some windows over here. There we go. All right, here we are. We're looking at our application serving. Get that up. Modular state and bring up our console just to make sure everything looks okay. You know what? Let's go get a random VIN. 1996 Ford Escort. Sounds good. Um, Code this VIN. And we got our 1996 Ford Escort, the LX trim. Everything at the top looks good. So, what we haven't done is gone through and fixed like the engine and fuel type. We can see that stuff here in the um, we can see here's the gasoline fuel type and here's the number of cylinders in the engine. This is probably the displacement. Yeah, that is a weird displacement. Um, oh, that's cubic centimeters. That's why it's a cubic inches. And then here's the number of liters, the displacement. So we could go through and fix that. And we will. I think we'll start looking at stuff like that once we get a back end going. And TBD Gamer, welcome. Good morning. Good to have you here. Um, always always fun to see familiar faces in the chat as we get going. And I jumped right into it. We are. I think we were going to be. Um, well, first of all, thank you guys. Thursday, I just there was some stuff that came up that I had to handle. And so I wasn't able to do it. It was a little last minute, but everything's good. We're all taken care of, and today, able to stream. Sounding quite a bit better. Thank you. I am feeling better. There still is some fatigue, which is crazy, and a little bit of like in the evenings, I can feel it's still a little bit more difficult to breathe. You guys don't know, I have asthma, and so like breathing respiratory diseases are a little bit more concerning. And so I've always got my rescue inhaler on me and stuff like that. Um, so I'm always a little bit more self-conscious about just breathing and stuff like that in general. Um, but thank you. Um, I am feeling better. Um, I don't think I've got anything crazy going on. Last night, so I worked for Bill. Bill is headquartered in San Jose. Um, Last night I went to the RSL Real Salt Lake game. My daughter was part of the halftime show for the game, um, and they were playing San Jose. They weren't doing very well. Um, RSL did not do well against San Jose, um, and um, so we actually left at halftime. But it was kind of funny to see. The home team was playing the team from where where the headquarters are. I'm gonna talk to people on Monday about that and just see if anybody was watching. Um, that was a lot of fun. That my daughter got to participate in the halftime show um, for the RSL game. Um, other than that, yeah, not a whole lot has changed. Things seem to be going well, and we're running our application. So today, what I really want to look at is we've got. I mean, it's still a fairly trivial application, I would say. Um, it's not, there's not a ton to it that makes it, you know, it's really a couple of forms, and then a couple different views of those forms, right? Um, but we're doing some unique stuff with the way we're injecting um, the state and like the Vindy code service and things like that make what we're doing a little bit unique. Um, and our bundle sizes. That's what I really want to take a look at today. Um, is I would like to see if we can get our initial bundle size under 10K, excluding styles. Like styles is something that I still want to figure out. Like, how can we make our styles better? Um, but can we serve less than 10K? We're pretty close here with the Vite serve. But if we do a pnpm exec nx build our modular state, and we'll take a screenshot of this so that we can compare after we do some other stuff, right? Um, the first thing we're going to do is convert over to SSR. Um, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Um, the first reason that we could go take a look at converting to SSR is if you guys don't follow Minko on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, um, definitely you guys should start doing that. Um, he uh, he tweets a lot of good stuff about Angular, and this week one of the things that he was mentioning is big things are coming for Angular in version 19 and beyond with respect to SSR. And my guess for that, I don't have any knowledge as to why, but my guess um, is the integration with Wiz, and Wiz allowing streaming of um, of subregions and stuff like that. That's my guess. Um, but if we take a look, the amount that we're serving right now, and I want to look at the raw size, not the gzip transfer size. I'd like to get this size under 10K. Um, and we could do that with some creative stuff, but I'm curious if SSR will help us get there initially. Um, and then if SSR can do that, then it's an easy path for everybody to get there, right? Because some of the stuff that we might take a or that we could take a look at doing requires some custom code, and um, that's not something that everybody's going to do. That's not something that everybody is going to want to add, right? Um, so using the tools that are provided by Angular is a good idea. Um, let's see. Let's get a screenshot of this. Um, okay. So there is our screenshot. And let's bring up Paint. And we will just paste that right here. So boom, there's our screenshot. One thing I would like to do is like this has input or has focus selector. I don't think we've got any custom selectors. let's just go take a look, right? Has and then has dash focus. Has focus. Yeah, I think that error is coming from. Uh, I think this comes about because of Daisy or Tailwind. Um, it's just there's an empty subselector on this has here. Um, and it makes sense. This is probably from Daisy because the input accent and stuff like that. But anyway, let's not get distracted there. Let's see what we can do to our initial package, our initial bundle size, if we just enable SSR. So to do that, we need to do a couple of things. And I did a little bit of searching before stream. I've never actually turned on SSR mid project. So I wanted to do that um, with everybody here. And my experience with SSR, I've mostly avoided SSR because in the past it has been, it can be a little bit difficult and, sometimes it doesn't behave the way we would expect it to. Um, are we running zoneless? Did I turn on zoneless? I don't remember. We can go take a look. If we take a look at our application or app settings, app, app config, that's what we want. We do have zoneless on. Um, we might get um, we might get warnings about SSR not working with zoneless. But I did message. Um, I got an interesting response on Twitter saying that the message may not necessarily reflect, you know, uh, it may not necessarily reflect the actual state of the application. Um, but we can turn this off really easily if we need to. Um, I would like to leave zoneless on, but my daughter's playing with my puppy. Two of them are cute together. Uh, she just ran by in the background, kind of giggling, and it made me laugh. But anyway, we'll take a look at that here once we enable SSR. It's really simple to do with NX. We just, run the setup SSR generator. That's what we're going to do. I'm just going to run it over here. Okay, maybe we'll run it here. So NX generate UI, and from here we're going to look for the SSR. So we could run this at the command prompt, but I tend to like to run it within whatever GUI project that I'm running it on. The main reason being that when enabling it this way, I can see all the options. So we do want to turn on hydration. Oh, okay. So it automatically defaults to true for anything over 17. And so the main.server.ts is the server side that's going to be running. And the app server module. I'm going to leave a lot of this stuff as is. Server file name, server.ts is fine. Running it on the 4000 port should be fine. Yes, we're going to use standalone components. And the app ID to use with server transition. So with SSR, we automatically get server transitions, I believe. So as we move between screens, things should move. But I think this is all we need to do. And it looks like we're going to get a server config. We're going to get a main server. It's going to update the app config. Project.json it's going to update. Our tsconfig.app it's going to update. And I was concerned about these module things here, but it looks like we're not going to get any of those. So let's go ahead and generate this. And then once we generate it, we're going to need to get the application serving. And right now it's going out and it's grabbing a bunch of files. It has to add some NPM packages and things like that for this to all work. Oh, TBD Gamer, what does zoneless mean? Zoneless, so within Angular, there's a Zone.js. Zone.js was kind of the piece of magic that made Angular 2 work. Mishko, when it came out, the guy who started Zoneless or Zone.js, the compliment that Mishko gave him during one of the early ng-confs was that he basically did open heart surgery on the browser. And what Zone.js does is it goes in and it patches every async thing that the browser can do. So, your XHR, your promise resolutions, any events, things like that. And that's why, when somebody clicks a button, your change detection runs, right? When if somebody's typing, your change detection can run, things like that. That's what Zone.js does for us. Is it patches all of that stuff for us automatically, and that's what makes all the automatic Angular change detection run. Well, there's a downside to that, right? There's a whole lot of magic there, but because there's magic there, they try to make some intelligent decisions. But just because it doesn't know your application, it doesn't know things like that. Zone.js tends to run change detection more often than needed. And so, one of the common complaints now about Angular is that Zone.js, can often lead to, poor performance. So with signals, we kind of get the ability to notify Angular that something's changed within, a specific component or a specific place, right? And Angular can use signals to then build change detection trees, something very similar to what React does with their hooks, right? Signals are, they're not the same. They're very similar to the way it works, right? And so Angular can know that only this portion of this component changed. And with defer blocks, you can get, even more granular changing, right? So that like, this island that's set apart in defer has changed because of this signal. It allows Angular to be more intelligent about how it runs change detection. For that to work, though, you have to be using signals. You have to be using on push and things like that, right? In the future, there's discussion of completely zoneless applications that also use signal-based components. And there are some very interesting and exciting ideas around that. Zoneless means that we've taken Zone.js and we've disabled it. And it's not a new concept. Last year when we looked at RxJS, or not, sorry, not RxJS, Rx Angular. Rx Angular has it works zoneless by itself. And so like the movie application, that is like, one of the benchmarks for Angular performance, it performs incredibly well and does some very, very impressive things. Um, it's zoneless because it uses Rx Angular to handle the stuff outside of the zone, and then it lets the zone, know what needs to update. Um, so the concept of being zoneless isn't new to Angular. It's just that Angular is now looking at providing tools to do it. Um, and so, we can see in our app config, that we're using an experimental zoneless change detection, right? And they intentionally added the experimental to it, so that you know that when you turn this on, what you're doing is completely experimental. And um, if it breaks, well, you knew that when you added the experimental feature, right? Um, you know what? I think we turned this off, right? Didn't we turn this off on that ESLint rule? It was just, it wasn't doing what I thought it would do. Anyway, let's go take a look and see what the generator did for us, so that we know what's changed, right? So we just ran that generator. In our project.json, it's added some scripts, right? Um, so, well, no, it added the server output. It added pre-render and SSR. So to our modular state, we've got the server script, we've got the pre-render script, and then it also gave us the SSR entry point. So we're going to need that. Um, it also built a server.ts, and it looks like we're using the Express server. And so it's set up some stuff to be able to serve this, right? So it's trying to serve from the browser, and so we've got the index.server.html, um, setting up view engines and stuff like that. Oh, interesting. Setting up some caching 1 year on the max age. That's pretty cool. And just some simple stuff like this. That's all good. Then the app config.server, we're providing the server rendering, and so now it's merging the app config with the server config. And the app config, we're providing client hydration, and that's the only change there. And then with the main.server, so this is the interesting piece here. We're exporting a bootstrap function. And this is very similar to what you would do. You can do this kind of stuff, and this can make your Angular initial package much smaller, right? And the cost here is that your page load is much faster, but then once the page is loaded, then you call Bootstrap. And when you call Bootstrap, that is what grabs all of the Angular bundles and brings them down. So it's not like you've made the application smaller. You've made your initial render faster by serving less JavaScript. So our tsconfig app now includes nodes as a type. And it's added some stuff there. That's fine. And then in package.json, we've added the platform server, we've added Angular SSR, and we've added the Express server. And the types for the Express, that makes sense there. And then it looks like tsconfig base, nothing changed. So we added SSR project. At this point, I'm not sure how well it's going to run, but let's find out. So pnpm exec nx serve modular state. And I may need to get another tab and run the Angular server too. We're building right away. Man, that polyfills file is huge. Why is that so big? That's interesting. And let's go to our application and let's refresh. I'm not overriding signal store members. I'm curious about this message. Okay, so now it's not telling us that it's not supported. It's telling us that it's only partially supported. So we'll take a look at that. So hydration relies on a signal from Zone.js when it becomes stable inside an application. So the Angular can start the serialization process. Providing a custom or a no-op zone implementation may lead to different timing on. Okay, so it's just letting us know, and that was the message that I got, was that the timing may be off, but our application seems to be okay. I'm curious about overriding the Zone.js stuff here. Let's pop this out and see where we're trying to do that. So the console says on line 33. Oh, it may be the way that that our SSR stuff is handling this injection. That wouldn't surprise me. Just back on the side. Still a little bit buggy with with Arc, but it's getting there. What version of Arc are we on? It's based on Chromium 128, but I don't know what version we're on. Say anywhere? I know we're still in a very much alpha version. It's been really good so far. Take a look at the console. So we already hydrated one component and 15 nodes. Nothing was skipped. And so that all looks good. Like if I hit, let's go get a random VIN. So we'll decode this Elantra, 2010 Elantra. So boom, we'll hit this and decode, and everything's working, right? So that was relatively painless. That may not always be the case. And there's some things to be aware of. So let's grab go to angular.dev, do that. And inside of here, SSR, server-side rendering. So, it's going to tell us what is SSR and, how to add SSR if you're using the ng CLI. If you're using NX, that you can use a generator. You could actually use this is this will run generators itself, right? when you add the Angular SSR, it's going to run the generators and it's going to add this stuff. NX pre-configures things so that it runs more of its stuff, right? And then it talks about using common engine. So um, I'm not sure if NX added Express or if Angular adds Express, whichever one. But we've got common engine set up here that they added to the. But we can take a look, right? We would be able to see if common engine is in our server.ts. We'll take a look at our server.ts. So inside of here, it looks like, no, there's the common engine stuff here. So I think common engine is a tool that allows Angular to work with whatever. So if we wanted to use Nginx or something else like that, common engine would be fine with it. Express might be set up by default. I don't know. There we go. We've got our common engine stuff in there. And it goes through all this stuff. It talks about hydration, what hydration is. Hydration is the piece that basically allows us to serve smaller initial pages and then hydrate the page, right? Add the data and the stuff that goes along with the data. And then Angular is going to cache data using HTTP client. And the reason for that is that it allows the pre-rendering to be faster and add some other capabilities to your application. But this is the piece right here that I definitely wanted to take a look at with everybody. So there are some things that people do in their applications that can make SSR more difficult. So if you ever use Window, Document, Navigator, or Location in your application, and they also say some certain parts of HTML element, and those won't be compatible with the server, right? So like the server has no idea what a window is or a document or a navigator or changing the location or things like that, right? Those are all things that the browser does. Similar with certain pieces of HTML element, right? Certain DOM elements might have things that only make sense in a browser. So how do we handle this? That's where the after render and the after next render lifecycle hooks come in. So here you can see they're setting the scroll height, or they're console logging the scroll height, right? Scroll height doesn't make sense on a server because a server doesn't have a viewport, right? And so accessing a scroll height only runs in the browser. Well, if you have code that can only run in the browser, how do you handle it? You wrap it in an after next render, and then the SSR knows, oh, I skipped this code, right? And then once I hydrate and I'm done rendering, then Angular takes over and it goes, oh, this code needs to be run because it was skipped on the server side, right? And then service workers can also cause problems. So the initial server request will be rendered on the server as expected. However, the initial request and subsequent requests are all handled by the service worker and always client side. And so there's some small changes to the way service workers work in SSR. But this is the big one, is understanding window, document, navigator, and location. The other thing that I just want to call out here is, if you're using like window, document, navigator, or location, inject those into your services or your components or wherever you're using them, because that way you can mock them, right? Um, so instead of doing, just window dot in your code here, uh, provide a, provide an injection token for window and then access it in your code. Um, and that way you can override it in your unit tests and things like that. Um, that's really all we need to know. And this was pretty painless. If we go look at our application, um, let's go take a look at our network tab here. Let's just see what happens as we move through our application. So our initial render, um, we hit localhost, and right away you'll see that we're getting an HTML document, right? So our very first render is an HTML document. We've got hot module reloading in here, so this isn't going to be like a good comparison. Um, but you can see that it's already rendering some HTML or some CSS, right? With some backdrops, windows. Um, we've got a bunch of CSS that it's already serving for us, and then it's creating our template that has our divs and things like that, and it's pending the children. Um, so basically, it's building up our entire um, our entire what do we want to call? Oh, actually, I was looking at the JavaScript here. This is the actual response, right? So we can see uh, inside of here, we've got some styles. These are our styles that it's setting up. Um, it's copying over a bunch of styles for us. Um, and then this is static, right? We can see that our stuff is static. Um, we're getting static data already. And this stuff is coming from the pre-populated data. Um, and then, we load the main module, or we load the main.js. And so our initial page size is 3.7K, which is pretty good, right? Our client piece that runs that is 137K. Our styles are 49K. Our main JS has dropped to 15.7K. So we'll compare that. And these aren't going to be good comparisons because these are server builds, right? But, we're getting all of these chunks. And if we look here, so the initial serve that happens in less than 100 milliseconds, right? In the is we get um, this amount served, right? So we serve localhost, right? The document, the 3.7K document, the static document that we were looking at, um, it really is just the header and some and the JSON, or not the JSON. This is the JSON. This is the pre tag at the bottom down here, right? So we're getting this served in the initial document. We're getting the client that does the hot module reloading. So when we go look at this, like this client right here, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it we probably don't need. Our styles are 50K, and a lot of this is Tailwind, right? Um, and then we've got our main JS and this is the piece that, um, so our Bootstrap actually comes in, and where do we call the Bootstrap? So it writes out the store. writes out the provide app state, writes out the app component. The app component's here. Then we import the stuff that we're using in our, this is coming from our app config, and then our app routes are here, and our app config ts is providing that, and this is where we call bootstrap. At the very end, we bootstrap the application, and so really, client could probably get much smaller, and main.js can be much smaller with some minification and stuff. That's our first 100 milliseconds, right? And then after that, we get all sorts of stuff, right? This is all of Angular coming through. So we're getting a whole bunch of chunks, we're getting the platform browser. So this is all the interactivity of the page coming through in this waterfall right here that we can see. And then this is the point where which one's this one called? I believe this is the I believe this is the point where it says that the DOM is active, but we've got a couple other requests here. So we're getting another chunk loaded here. We're asking for another component, which is this component right here, the combined component, which is two components in one. What is this? Detect Angular for extension icon bundle. Oh, this is not us. This is one of the extensions. And this is coming from that. Can we disable this? I guess we can't because it's on the network tab. We could disable it in the console. This is the bundle that it's grabbing. Here's Angular forms that we need for this. Grabbing the icon. What's this chunk? This is the vehicle details store. This is the Vindicoder directive that we've attached to this button. And this is our checkbox directive. Input. So all the directives that we wrote to make our inputs and stuff styled by Daisy, those come in this request here. So we can see that it's like our initial transfer is really small, and this is the benefit of going SSR. We can get a page that while the rest of our application loads, people can interact with. That I'm watching. Oh, thank you for catching that, TBD Gamer. Makes sense. So it's perception, and it is a bit of perception. You're totally right there. What one of the dirty little secrets, I guess we could call it, of working in front end, and this is why I think it's worth your time to do some research into like psychology, and not necessarily like the broad psychology field. I mean, that's useful in and of itself, but just like the psychology of web pages. It's interesting how our perception of time changes. So if we have an application that freezes for an indefinite amount of time, our perception of the passage of time is worse than if all I did was add just a little spinner, right? All that spinner does is reassure you psychologically that something is going on. And research has been done into this where, they've taken a UI and they've just frozen it for half the amount of time. that they freeze the UI for with a spinner. And like without fail, people will say that the one with the spinner took less time than the other one, even though they knew that it was half the time of the one with the spinner. Well, the researchers did. They just people's perception of time changes, right? And that's like animations, right? Um, a lot of times you add animations to sites just to make people, feel good about the way your site works. And now we've got some simple animations because of SSR, right? So as we go between these two, you'll see that it kind of fades out and fades in. And we could play with these animations and we could make them so that things slide or things like that. But notice that like watch the buttons, they kind of grow as they pop in. There's this, I don't know, pleasant growing effect, right? Um, and there's a fade in effect and things like that. And people like things like that, people's eyes are drawn to them. But if you don't want to add spinners and you want to hide the passage of time, if you slow down an animation and make your animation take more time while things are happening in the back end, right? You could even have a slower site, but people's perception of the amount of time that passed will be so much. It will work to your benefit and favor. And so you're 100% correct. And this is it's just kind of a fact of life, right? The perception is reality. Um, and one of the like, I don't want to get political here. Okay? I don't want to discuss politics or things like that. Um, that's not what I'm here for, and nobody cares about my politics. But um, politics is a good place where perception is reality, right? The echo chambers that people hang out in tend to become their reality, right? Um, and so people will believe things about people that they don't even know in politics because they've heard over and over and over that this thing is true. Their perception of that thing is the way that they color their view of politics, and it happens universally, right? So I'm not, and again, I don't want to get political. It's never a good place to go in a programming stream to get political, right? If you guys want to hear politics, go to somebody that you trust who knows way more about politics than I do. Um, and but one of the interesting things to do is watch how the sources of your politics is coloring your politics to try to get you to perceive a certain view, right? Um, and both sides refer to this different ways. Um, but you'll often hear people talk about the narrative. You'll often hear people talk about their worldview. You'll often hear, right? And those are ways to color your perception of reality. Um, I'm not saying they're right or wrong. What I am saying is that psychologically, they're taking advantage of tricks that our brains do, where what we perceive is reality. Um, and this is really fascinating stuff to delve into. Like criminal law, um, one of the least reliable and credible sources of information are eyewitness accounts. Um, and it's really fascinating um, as you go back and you look at criminal law, and they've done studies about how people's eyewitness accounts have changed from what they originally told, the officer on the scene, to what they tell later to lawyers, to what they later say on the, as they're sworn in, and right. And stories can vary wildly from the instant when they're told to an hour later to 24 hours later to, and part of the reason for that is not that the person is malicious, right? Um, like most of the time, it's not that the person is trying to be dishonest. What's crazy is that, say you're involved in a traumatic experience or an experience where your emotions are heightened through adrenaline or whatever, right? Our brains replay that situation, and it's a survival thing, right? Replaying it and replaying it, and trying to figure out, what could I have done to avoid this situation, right? Because situations where they're traumatic or your emotions are heightened through, adrenaline or whatever, your body wants to avoid those situations, right? Because to it, you were in a situation that was potentially life or death, right? And of course you want to survive, and of course you don't want to be in situations where you could potentially be in life. So our brains just naturally replay stuff like that, right? And there may be details that you didn't see, but your brain is just going to fill them in, right? That's kind of the way that optical illusions and audio illusions and things like that work. Is your brain sees something, doesn't know how to interpret it, so it starts filling in details. Well, we do the same when we replay things over and over in our head, right? And so, like if you were involved in a car accident, right? Um, what actually happened and what you say happened 6 hours, 24 hours, a week, a month, a year later will be completely different, because as your brain replays that over and over again, and as it adds more and more details that may or may not have been there, right? Things change. Um, and that perception, right? Perception is reality. That's just the way it is, right? What we perceive is what we deem real. And that's why a lot of times when you're in discussions with people and they refuse to see outside of their whatever their form of perception is, um, that conversation's never going to go anywhere, because you're narrowed. You can only see a small portion, um, and because of that narrowing, you're never going to be able to have a bigger discussion. Our brains are amazing things, but sometimes they let us down. Well, and you're right. It's not that they let us down, right? It's survival, right? If if something is traveling quickly at my face, I don't have time to make all the calculations and decide what it is, right? I'm just going, my brain is like, move your face, right? Because your head is right very important. Um, and so your brain makes a whole bunch of shortcuts. It's not that they're letting us down, it's that I'm helping you survive, is what your brain thinks, right? And that's why um, making decisions when your emotions are heightened is often not the right way to go. It's very, like, if you're not in a life or death situation, it's very, very rare that you need to make decisions quickly. Um, and like one of the famous, like, I love to watch scam baiting calls, right? Um, because I love to watch people go and waste scam call centers times, but it's also interesting to see how the scammers operate. Um, and if you've ever noticed that with scammers, there's always a high pressure situation, right? I just watched, oh, it was Prime. I was watching Prime yesterday. And he got caught by one of the USPS um, scams, right? And if you're not in the US, I'm sure a version of the scam probably exists in your country. The USPS is the United States Postal Service. And the way these scams work is they send out texts, and the texts say, hey, this is the USPS. We're trying to deliver a package to your house. Um, Click on this link and provide information, right? And then the text includes some form of, if you don't respond within the next 24 hours, we're going to destroy the package or who knows what, right? Something like that that adds a time element and pressure because then your brain starts making those shortcuts because it's like, oh no, I've got to get this done within a certain amount of time. Um, and then you go to a site, the site asks for a whole bunch of information, and one of those lines of information happens to be a credit card, right? Well, because your brain is making shortcuts, it's like, oh, of course they need a credit card. I've got to pay. When have you ever had to pay to have a package delivered to your house, right? It just doesn't make sense. But because they've added that element of time, right? Now your brain is making shortcuts. And instead of that, you're like, oh, of course I need to pay for this, right? That's just the way things are in the world. No, it's not the way things are. But yeah, yeah. But good to see you, Marcus. Thank you for being here. Anyway, back to programming. Thanks for you sniped me good with that one, man. You sniped me really good with that one, TBD Gamer. And happy Sunday to you, Marcus, too. Hopefully yours was good. Yours is almost over. Thank you for joining. Anyway, this is really cool because what we can see in our network, if we go pop this out again, right? Oh, it's we need to refresh this because I've been talking for so long that the network is now no longer what it was, right? But what we can see is we can see um, these different phases. Um, so notice here that all we're getting is the wizard. Um, so all it's doing is within the first 50 milliseconds, um, it is serving just this endpoint, right? Just the wizard. And it's just HTML. And it's like a 3.7K document, right? Why is it 3.7K? Well, if we look at the response, a large portion of that is the CSS, right? Um, so this is the initial response. And then within the next 100 milliseconds, we get all of this stuff to basically make our page interactive, right? So we get the client script. And this client script is what attaches all the different listeners that allow our site to become interactive. It attaches, the bigger styles. This is the styles.css. And then, our main.js is also served. And this is what actually makes our site interactive, right? Again, if we look, much smaller, right? This one, I think the hot module reloading is what makes the client so much bigger here. And we can validate this by actually running the builds. But we've got these HMR reloads and stuff like that. We'll see what happens there, right? And then this, it waits for a certain amount of time. This is what's probably being talked about where is stable, can take longer. It looks like, there's 100 milliseconds between when all the scripts are here and, when the next step happens, right? And this is everything else. So everything else comes in, and then by 400 milliseconds, our DOM content is loaded. That's the one I was looking for. And then our final load is done by 470 milliseconds. So, and this is the final stuff, which is just some of this stuff is like extensions. Some of it is the chunks, right, needed. So, this is the vehicle info. This is a token that's used to inject the service. This one, again, is, change detection strategies and stuff, the Vindicator directive. And I think this one also includes like the checkbox directives. No, this is just the Vindicator directive. So this makes the Vindicator button work. And this is the one that includes all of our, input and checkboxes and things like that. And the Angular Forms comes along, right? Um, it comes along towards the very end. So sorry about that. Throat's getting a little bit dry. I'm talking quite a bit. All right. So what does this do for our bundle sizes? I'm really curious. Let's go ahead and just take a look at that. And we're getting all those errors also here in the console. But let's just go pnpm exec nx build, and let's get our stats JSON here, because I do want to look at the bundles and things like that. We've looked at the other bundles. I'm curious, what can we do to make these bundles smaller? And while this is coming up, let's remind ourselves, right? So this is the initial chunk from before, and we'll just look at raw versus raw. So we're still fairly similar in sizes, right? So our initial chunks are still fairly large, and our lazy chunks are. But if we look, we've also got server chunks. These have to be run on the server, so these aren't being served anywhere. So this is, Express is going to build some big stuff. But I'm looking for, where is the HTML that's actually served? This is interesting. So the way we cheat at work, and it might be something to take a look at, is something very similar to what we see in let's go take a look at the main.ts, right? Something very similar to this. But what we do is, instead of this, we serve a script, and that script is tiny. It's a couple K. What that script does is, once it's loaded, it finds the DOM element, and then it bootstraps Angular into that DOM element. So it's super tiny, but it downloads that Angular component to do that bootstrapping, which we can take a look at potentially doing that too in a server-side rendered instance, and see if we can get our initial bundles way down. And what's the benefit to that? So in your applications, if we look at this, right, and now we're way out of, but having the DOM content loaded here, but the initial paint, having that initial paint happen within 50 milliseconds is going to greatly improve the user experience. And again, going back to perception, right? The site pops up almost instantly. Is it fully interactive yet? No. What can we do stuff to make that wait time better for the users? Absolutely. And we should, right? That's where Our defers are going to help us, right? Where we can show spinners or we could show content that says, hey, this is, we're working on this, who knows what, right? Skeletons, who knows what. But we can make that initial page pop up almost instantly, right? Um, and then from there, we're playing the psychological game, right? We sometimes there's nothing we can do to improve performance, um, and that's just the reality of, right, of, you're never going to be able to overcome the latency in HTTP requests, right? There's been a lot of research into how to do this, and there was an interesting YouTube video I watched the other day about microwave tech. Um, Apparently, the entire U.S. is completely covered in microwave transmitters from World War II, and those microwave transmitters can transmit faster than most of our fiber networks. Um, yeah, working with third-party APIs is another thing that can cause us problems, right? Um, and that's interesting. Okay, yeah, absolutely. You're totally correct there too, Michael. Third-party APIs are always going to cost us a bit more. Um, well, anything network related, right? Like at some point, um, let's say you're optimizing your your website, um, and you make an incredibly complex optimization that saves you 10 milliseconds, right? Well, 10 milliseconds is dwarfed by the 150 or 200 milliseconds that your network requests take, right? Um, so the question becomes, did you actually win? Or um, should you make that easier to maintain, right? Easier for people to read and understand and not worry about the 10 milliseconds that you save? Because really, in the scheme of things, that 10 milliseconds happens in the same amount of time while we're waiting for, our network requests to finish, and um, it doesn't matter, right? Because it still takes much longer for the network requests to finish. And those are the kind of discussions that you have with your team, right? Um, you know, is it worth the trade-offs? Um, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. It just really, you know, you don't know until you're making the trade-offs and you know what those trade-offs are. And again, that's one of the things that elevates you from like a junior to a senior or a senior to like, even staff level or architectural level or something like that, right? Is being able to look at a situation and go, okay, here are the trade-offs. This is the cost of trade-off A, this is the cost of trade-off B, which one do we care about? Um, so um, definitely definitely worth understanding, but let's go take a look at these bundles because I'm curious, is there anything we could do to make some of these bundles smaller or to push them into, different buckets? And um, it's a little bit annoying here. Can I zoom in on this? No, if I try to zoom in, it's just zooming the whole thing. Um, I've turned off the server for a little bit. Yeah, trade-offs. um, the quickest one that makes the most money. That's the right answer, right? Trade-offs. Um, it's the pyramid, right? Um, Cost, time, and quality. Pick two, right? Um, Often businesses pick cost and time, right? It's not until something bites you that you go, oh, maybe we needed to pick quality, right? Um, so quality costs money, um, and that's why when you're looking at vehicles, right? There's a reason that you're um, your higher end cars, your BMWs, your Audis, your Cadillacs, your, you know, I don't know. I don't want to list a bunch of high end brands, right? Vehicles that I'll never own in my life. Um, there's a reason those vehicles cost so much more than, you know, other brands, and it's the quality of components that go into it and things like that. Quality costs money. You know, it's more expensive to produce, which, you know, if you raise your costs, then you know, you're shrinking your potential market possibly, and so, you know, there's a reason. Yeah, and then moan about quality. Exactly. That's how you know TBD Gamer works in enterprise development. We need to go fast. And we need to make money. Uh, how come your unit tests aren't there? How come? Yes, exactly, TBD Gamer. Um, you know you've dealt with enterprise level development when you can make jokes like that. Um, so yeah, let's go take a look, because, you know, when we were looking at, actually, this is the actual shell. I should put this back on the side. No, this isn't. Yeah, it is. Want the feet. So when we look at these two, right, the differences are, I would say they're within tolerances, right? Like 7K out of 150K isn't that much, right? 1K out of 80K, not that big of a difference. This file's the exact same. This one's 2K bigger. These are the exact same, exact same, exact same, right? And then if we look here, exact same, right? Um, so really what's changed is that a little bit has been added to this one and this one and this one. So a little bit's been added to 3 packages. And that accounts for probably, well, 10K, right? You can see that here. I was doing the math in my head and I was like 10K, but then I was like, well, duh, you could have just looked here, right? Um, so, and then we also got the server build that's doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? Um, and notice that the server build is rebuilding some of these chunks. Um, so, you know, we're getting these chunks, and they're being rebuilt down here. Um, but they're actually bigger. That one's 20K bigger. 2039. That one's slightly bigger. 323. So they're slightly bigger, and the reason they're slightly bigger is so that they can build the static view, um, and then, you know, once the hydration happens, that's when this stuff is served. Um, so I actually expected it to be slightly different, um, but I'm not surprised that it is. It isn't, because they're doing the same cheat that that we do at work, but the way they're cheating is, with the SSR, right? With this stuff here. So these bundles here are building static views of the pages, and then once they're built and we get hydrated, then we load the stuff in the way they were before. Um, so um, I'm curious what accounts for the differences in size, right? The extra 10K. Um, I'm less concerned about the extra 10K, and maybe we don't go super aggressive. You guys tell me, if you want to see how we can make this initial chunk so much smaller. And I think there are other things we can do. And I want to do some research into, breaking apart the bundles, there might be ways that we can refer to bundles in a different way. Because I have seen like Twitter posts from the Angular team, that hey, we got things to 20K. Well, how would we do that with this application, right? Um, so I think there's some more tricks that we can do that I'm not aware of yet. The trick that we do at work is very similar to this. And basically what would happen is all of these bundles would be the same size, but they would be moved into the lazy chunks. SSR is doing that for us, right? What SSR does is it serves a static chunk. And then, once the server's ready, this stuff all comes across in in that bundle. But let's go take a look. I'm just curious. If we go to dist apps, um, and inside of here we go to modular state, and so here's our stats.json, right? And pre-rendered routes.json. This tells us which routes it's going to pre-render versus which ones Angular is going to serve normally. And that's why we've got a browser and a server file now, or folder. Um, but stats.json. So let's go npm dlx and we'll run our esbuild visualizer. And we're going to start folder. And from here, we are going to grab that and we'll just drop it into Arc. That work? I don't know. It doesn't look like it worked. That's annoying. There we go. So here is our initial, like this is our bundles, right? So within the root, okay, this includes all of the server stuff. So let's exclude star/star/star.mjs. Did I not just tell it to that's hilarious. What if I put this over where it says include? Hey, wait, what? Can I just exclude the server files? So if I just do star/server/star? No. The server MJS comes in on root. So what if I just do star.mjs? If I do server.mjs star/star/server.mjs. Man, that's kind of annoying. Because it's including the polyfills. So like this 219 megabytes and this, wait, oh, yeah, the whole thing is 219 megabytes. this is 231K for the polyfills. The server is 1 MB. I would love to be able to exclude this. But it's like we only care about roots, and some of these chunks aren't ours either. Um, I was thinking about manually going in and editing that. That would be amazing content, I think. Um, wish I could just say, hey, just ignore this one. It's like this we don't care about. What is this one? So this is RxJS. Um, this is also common, and this is the core. So this is the biggest chunk that's served here. Um, I guess that is an MJS chunk also. Like, can I just do star/star/star.js? I don't understand how these includes and excludes are working. Um, that's part of the problem. But this is our core.mjs here. Um, so we can see that the core is referred to by the platform browser. It's also referred to by app component. It's also referred to by app config, common.mjs. So store.ts. So what in core? Oh, I know what in core is referred to. Everything. Like if we go take a look at app component, right? Um, so here we are. We're looking at app component. So component is part of core, computed and inject. Can we do like primitives, signals? No. ESM, ESM source. Uh, no. Application. For authoring. Model output and input. We're getting there's something. Is it in compiler? Nope. I'm curious if we could linker platform. Um, might be in reflection for component. Nope. Anyway, I'm really curious. So if we didn't refer to this whole bundle, it could tree shake a bit differently, right? Um, like the router. Um, and this is where I'm curious about, some optimizations we could make. So we can see that like app component refers to this. Well, if component didn't refer to core, um, then core might be a part of its own bundle, um, right? And same thing with like our stores. If our stores didn't refer to core, then the store might be able to be a part of its own bundle and things like that. Um, like the problem is that core is everywhere, right? Um, and core includes a lot of things, right? Well, we know what it is, right? We can take a look right here. It's component, computed, inject. Um, and if we go take a look at this, computed, inject, injection token, injector, right? Those are all coming from core. Um, and then common refers to core. And so to break our dependency on core, um, we would need to figure out a way around that. Um, which we can do. We can do some crazy stuff to do that. The question is it worth it? Because if we look, like there is so much of our code that refers to core. Um, but if we break out core, what do we gain, right? And like signals. Um, so signals is imported by core, and it's also imported by NGRX signals, right? Um, and then if we look here, ESLib or TSLib is imported by RxJS. And here, common MJS is our app component is using common. Our wizard component is using common. Our Vindicoder, our vehicle details, and our server.ts. But that, like server, I don't care about. That's only on the server. So anything server related, I don't really care about. What I do care about is like vehicle details, wizard component, and app component, and the Vindicoder server. So if we look at app component, what is referring to common here? Um, how is this referring to? So this is a Vindicoder feature. App.component. So the JSON pipe that we're using is coming from Angular Common. Can we SM source pipes? Yeah, it doesn't like this. Um, so the JSON pipe that we're using is what is causing us to refer to common here. But I'm also like, if we were to take out the JSON pipe, which we could do. I mean, it's kind of a debugging thing. We can absolutely do that, right? If we do that, platform browser still refers to an HTTP router. That's the one that I was curious about. And it's hard for me to point at it because as soon as I move the mouse, but router MJS refers to common. So even if we were to take common out, our app component still has a reference to router, which still refers to common. Let's see what happens if we take out JSON pipe, right? Which means we take it out here, which also means that we would take it out of our pre-tag. There's where we're using it. So boom. So now we've taken out our JSON pipe there. Let's find all places where we refer to the JSON pipe. JSON pipe. So in the vehicle details, we're also using it. So here, and again, that's our only reference to Angular Common. We take it out of here. And that in turn means there it is right there. We just remove the JSON from here also. Oh, what did I do? Oh, you can't remove you can't remove all of it, just the pipe. So there we go. And now the last place we refer to it is in the wizard component. Store.current step. Why is that red? Oh, we didn't add current step to the store. We should go fix that. Should also fix the display next button. And the confirmation step. Oh, that's fine. We're going to leave the JSON pipe here. But our store is a wizard store, and we need to go fix that up. There's the next step, the previous step. Current step comes from the state. So that is there. And we aren't referring to the store by that's there. Display next button, I think that was also there, right? Yeah, there's the display next and back button. I don't know why. Oh, you know what? I think the issue is no, that does that make sense? Like if I were to do that, I don't think that makes sense. Yeah. Because now it doesn't like with methods. Um, I think I think what we're seeing here is in state source unknown. Where's that state source unknown coming from? The wizard store has all this stuff on it, but it's got a state source. Um, like I wish it wouldn't cut this off because I'd like to know what this state source is. Um, hmm. But it comes from the signal store, right? Because the signal store has the wizard state computed in methods, and then it's got more state on it. But the type definitely has everything on it. The the main reason that this gets a little bit frustrating is like if we go down here, we do this dot store dot well, there's current step. So they're there. It must just be display issues. Yeah. Problem is that this file is being marked by the IDE as having issues when it doesn't. And it is largely due to the template. Because this type of store is that, but if we look at the store here, we've got all of this stuff on it. So I'm not sure what's going on in the template. I'm really not sure there. Um, but we've taken the JSON pipe out of a lot of things. Why do I have a div here? Is that div needed? I don't think so. That's just some div spam. Take out the confirmation step, which in turn allows us to remove the JSON pipe. Now we've removed all of our references to Angular common through the JSON pipe. One thing we need to do is now go to the store and actually, you know what? We'll just go back here to the confirmation step. And here we'll just do our H3 confirmation, and we'll leave it there for now. We'll create a display component that we can add in here. um, we can add later. So now that we've done that, let's go. Um, so let's just go pnpm exec nx serve, and we'll serve the modular state just to start with. And I just want to make sure that removing that I didn't accidentally break anything. I don't think I did. Um, but let's just let's be careful here. Going back to Arc, back to our modular state. Let's grab this and go ahead and refresh. So if we look again, we've got the initial serve, right? And the crazy thing is the green is waiting time. So if we look, we actually waited for most of that time, and the amount of time that it actually took to download is minuscule. And again, we're down to 3.2K now, from the 3.7 we were at before. Um, and here, things are about the same. But here, I don't know. I don't remember what everything was here. But we 312 milliseconds, 336 for the full load, but that just could be. I mean, it's tough to know, right? That time it took 328. It could be, the amount of time it's taking to render on my system, um, right? Because now we're sub 300, right? 299. So it's difficult to know, um, what's causing that issue. But if you guys look, um, even here where we're out at 325, um, the amount of time it's taking for things to show up is minimum, right? Like it pops in immediately. Um, because within 50 milliseconds these pop up, and everything to here is us waiting for that initial data to come back, and then within 100 milliseconds, right, we're serving all of this, just 203K. And by this point in time, right, we served 1.9 out of the 2.2 megabytes. But we've slowed things down quite a bit. What is this? Like, which? That's that. Can I not click on this? No. So I've got to hunt it down. So this chunk is being asked for. This is an RxJS chunk. Behavior subject, subject description first, and map. That's just a chunk that includes some of RxJS. This chunk has nothing in it. This chunk includes tslib, something from RxJS that determines if something's a function. From RxJS, create error class. This is largely RxJS, and this is these are polyfills. But again, we're loading so fast. Um, by 350 milliseconds, our DOM content is loaded. Just crazy. Um, yeah, and like the difference in load times has more to do with what my computer's doing than anything like that, right? Because I'm serving the streaming and all of that other stuff. There are other processes running in the background. Um, you know, really the browser could be draining more for whatever reason. Who knows what, right? So these differences in load times um, are to be expected, but they're fast. We're less than half a second to have everything loaded, and the DOM content is surely less than half a second. If we take a look at our performance tab, um, what we want, let's just take like with SSR, what does Lighthouse think of our page, right? So with SSR on, we're already at 88% performance, which is crazy. Um, so it's saying our FCP is out at 1.2 and our LCP is at 2 seconds. Um, we've got no layout shift. We've got no blocking time. So um, text resources. And this is largely due to us serving. I'm curious, can we serve? Let's try that. Um, so here, if we go here and we do configuration um, production, is that the right way to do it? Is that going to serve a production build? It is. So now we should have like minification and stuff turned on. So if we delete that and we analyze our page load again, our our performance went down. Why did our FCP? So our FCP happens in 1.7 seconds. It was at 1.2 before. Um, Part of that is probably because everything was warmed up, and actually we aren't minifying anything. So um, so even doing a production serve. So the best way to do this would be to spin up a server and then serve the built directory from there. Um, but for like a dev server, this is not bad. For speed index, I'm really curious because like the page pops up almost instantly in the background, right? Um, we got slightly better. Our FCP is still going on here. What's Control W? That's really weird. I don't know what is causing that. But right, from our FCP to our LCP, we're the same now. Um, which means this would probably get better as if we were serving it from a real web server. Um, because part of the reason that the development server isn't good is it's dynamically generating this. Um, like our best practices here, we're using deprecated APIs. Unload handler. See, this isn't us, and this is the other thing. Just detecting a JavaScript library. That's fine. Um, our SEO score got way better because now we're serving a um, static site. Um, we don't have a meta description, and that's true. I never add them. I let marketing worry about that kind of stuff. Um, one thing we could do is if we were to go here, uh, so we should have nothing running here. And so now if we go to like localhost 4200 and we go run our Lighthouse stuff again, right? We shouldn't be getting and that's one of the other things about running like these tools is I'm running this in. Oh, are you kidding? Once I turned off all my add-ons, we're 100 across the board. Um, that's crazy. So my add-ons were so my extensions, and that's something that you definitely need to take into consideration, right? Is like what are your extensions adding to the thing, but that's pretty good for a Lighthouse score, especially um, serving off of a development server that's not minified, right? So like if we were to minify stuff, these scores would get even better. So by zero point 0.6 seconds, less than a second, everything's up and going on this site. And like the site isn't super complicated, but it's also not trivial. Um, that's crazy, right? Our accessibility is good because we've been, paying attention to colors and stuff like that. Um, I don't have a CSP policy enabled, so I don't have any nonces or anything like that going. And so it's telling me, hey, you might be vulnerable to XSS attacks. That's probably true. I don't have a server set up, so I don't have, anything there. And then with SEO, no meta description. That's actually not bad. I'm actually really surprised by this. If I look at network and let's just go refresh, right? Running this with none of my extensions in place. Is that the right one? Yeah, it is. So we're still loading in the same amount of time. It's just that Lighthouse was taking into account other things. Actually, no, we're not loading in the same amount of time because the load is like a millisecond after the DOM content loaded. That's crazy. Yeah. So these two lines are right next to each other now, um, which is amazing, right? Within 200 milliseconds, the browser is like, your page is ready to go. And that's served off of a dev server. That means that, we could get, with minified bundles and, the caching that a normal web server is going to be doing, these times would get better. Um, and that's one of the big wins here, right? So, people who are going to tell you, Angular's slow. Um, the way Angular is typically deployed can be slow, right? Angular itself is not slow; it's highly optimized, and there are things you can do to make Angular much faster. Um, so, as we look at this, within 150 milliseconds, we've got everything. Right? Bundle sizes, yes. We could probably do better with our bundle sizes, but again, what kind of wins would we get? Because if we look, these gray areas here are us waiting for the web server, right? So it's taking that long for the web server to even respond. And so the blue is when it's actually downloading, and the green is while we're waiting for the web server to process our request. Um, and so with a better web server, these gray areas go down, right? Um, with the web server that's already got cached stuff, these green areas go down. So then we're just looking at blue areas. These blue areas are pretty small already, and this is where hyper attention to bundle sizes could be detrimental to us. Because let's say we break this up into more packages, right? Into more bundles. Well, where is most of our bundle time coming from? It's coming from this gray area, which is the server request, right? The network latency is basically what this gray represents. Well, if I take half of this blue and we add some green and some gray to it, I've actually made my times worse by doing that, right? Um, because, even if we were to cut this in half, right, the blue in half, and we could load another one at the same time, um, this network request more than dwarfs the amount of savings we would get in the download time. And that's where you need to make data-driven decisions rather than go by what your tech influencers and content creators, people like myself, basically, our job is to scream really, really loud so you read our stuff or you watch our blog or you watch our streams, you read our blogs, you do right. That's our job. And so oftentimes it's to our benefit to inflate the size of the problem online. But there's what would be the benefit of cutting this in half, but then adding the network request to it? I don't know, right? Um, so especially like this is the first request, and it's done in, we could say, like 30 milliseconds, right? 30, maybe 40, I don't know. I'm calling it 30 just based on the size of the 50 millisecond chunk, right? So within 30 milliseconds, they have something on their phone, they have something on their screen, right? On their laptop, who knows what they're using, right? But within 30 milliseconds, they've got something. Um, and then within 150 milliseconds, the site is interactive. We can go, and you guys will have to let me know. We can go and optimize this, like hyper optimize it, and do some stuff that, like, um, like what we do at my job, right? The reason we optimize at my job is the product that I'm working on um, is designed to be embedded in a client's website. So if you think of like when you add Stripe to your website, that's what we're optimizing for, right? You're taking our code and you're adding it into your page, um, and we don't want to mess with your Lighthouse scores, right? And so if our application messes with your Lighthouse scores, we've got a problem. So the initial bundle that we serve has to be as small as possible, right? Because that's the script that we give to our customers, and we say, "Hey, add this to your page, and once it's added, then this script takes care of loading our stuff, right?" Um, and that is the script that runs in. If we take a look at the network, consider the script that we're adding. That's what runs in this initial download, right? Then our script does something very similar to this, where once the initial FCP and LCP is all done, we wait for the browser to tell us, okay, you're good to go. And then we grab all of the stuff we need and we load it. And then, right, and then Angular takes over and this kind of stuff happens, right? Um, so our stuff looks very, very similar to this. Um, why would you do what we're doing? Why wouldn't you do server-side rendering? Well, our stuff is served from a CDN, um, and it's embedded in their site. So server-side rendering doesn't work for us. If you control the server end to end, SSR, I think, is a huge win here. Um, consider the script that we are adding. Me months ahead of the pilot season. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Um, but yeah, I was thinking about, oh, we could optimize and we could do some cool stuff. It's really hard to say that anything I would do would improve on this in a way that's helpful to you as a viewer of the stream, right? You could go do it, but now you're doing non-standard Angular loading, which means in the future, if Angular changes the way it bootstraps or things like that, now you've got to go fix the way you're bootstrapping, and that's one of the downsides to what we've got. Um, we can't do server-side rendering right now. Um, that's not even necessarily true. But what we can't get away from is the bootstrapper that we have. And the reason we can't get away from that is that the client needs to know how to load the specific payload that we have for them. Um, and that's one of the unique things about our use case, right? Is that our partners may want all or only certain parts of our application available to them. And so there's configuration that needs to happen and things like that. Um, and the CDN stuff, right? Yeah, the CDN's the big one. We're not serving our application from a server. We're serving it from a CDN, at an edge somewhere. Um, so basically, we're replicating server-side rendering, but not really because we don't render. Well, kind of. We're kind of replicating server-side rendering in what we're doing. Um, and so our package builds are small. Um, our initial bundles are small. The actual stuff is very, very similar to this size. Um, and that's one of the things that we're doing on purpose is we're trying to keep our bundles and our dependencies small because we don't want our clients to go out and download, a million things, right? Um, and so it's really forced us to take a look at how Angular works and things like that, because we want to make sure that we're, handling these. Um, we don't want we don't want our partners to get, this waterfall to be like 30 or 40, of these lines long. It just starts to get crazy and ugly. And then people are like, oh, sure, you bootstrap quick, but look at this, what you do to our pages, right? Um, so there's a lot of consideration that goes into that. Um, anyway, so as a content creator, one of my frustrations with modern Angular is that it's too easy. There needs to be some salt in my stream. I can't just get on and be like, oh yeah, it just worked. Hey guys, that's the end of it, right? I need to struggle and show you guys some struggle or something. I also need to retool and figure out what I'm going to be doing tomorrow because the I expected this package optimization arc to last longer. It's hard for me to want to do that. Yeah, exactly, TBD. Too easy. Ah, dang it. And TBD knows what I'm talking about because he's also a streamer. And sometimes we rely on the frustration to help build content. Hey, Burn of Sigma, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Um, and like the Angular being too easy is really good for for when you're writing code for work, right? Or when you're developing not for an audience. Um, Things being too easy when you're developing for an audience um, shows the tool well, right? Angular comes out looking really good. But me, now I'm stretching for content. What do we do? I'm doing really well. I'm getting close to the end of the stream. Actually, we are right at the end of the stream. I do want to do one thing before I end. Um, it's been a good stream and how are you doing? Hopefully you're doing really well, having a good Sunday. Let's go ahead and kill the browser. Um, we don't need it running. I want to just run another build and see if um, I want to see if what we did by taking CommonJS out was even worth it. Um, right? Was it worth the effort of what we did? Um, so if we go take a look, 142, 83. I'm willing to bet CommonJS is still in there. So let's go take a look. So cd dist apps Angular or modular Angular. And so inside of here, we're just going to run our DLX. Yep, that's the command. And after about 2 hours, my voice really starts to get. I killed my browser. I killed my browser, and I didn't need to kill my browser. I just needed to. Well, I didn't even really need to do that. Okay. Oh, look, we've got it right here. So we know this stuff is all the SSR stuff. This stuff is SSR. This is SSR version of this. So this was the one that had CommonJS in it, right? So this chunk is 137K. So here's core, right? And we recognize that we can't really remove core. We might be able to if we did some crazy stuff. Here's signals. I'm telling you, well, I'm willing to bet right now, well, we know common is now not in this chunk. And I could tell you that common wasn't in the chunk because of the shape, because signals used to be like a small line across the top up here, right? It's no longer that. So here's tslib, here's rxjs. So the work we did pulled common out of this chunk. Where did common go is the next question, right? So now we've got this chunk that has router in it, platform browser. It's got our stores. Oh, the other interesting thing, by pulling common out of here, we don't have anything in source in this chunk anymore. So our code was moved out of this chunk. So now if we look at main now includes the router. It includes platform browser. And here's our main.ts, and here's our routes. This is our config. This is the store, and this is the app component. So this stuff has all been moved into this chunk with the router, which is a good move, right? So here's our CSS. This is our forms, and we're getting two versions of forms. One is the server-side rendered. This is the browser version of forms, right? This chunk is the HTTP, which has been now moved into its own chunk. So there was some benefit into analyzing and going, yeah, we could take this stuff out. Actually, I don't see common anywhere now. So this is the XHR. So this one here, what's in this chunk? This chunk is just common. So common's in a chunk by itself, and it's the QSOTSCIK chunk. So if we go take a look at the built chunks, where does that one get loaded? 26 GOQR. I don't see the QS chunk. Oh, these are the servers. Never mind. So it gets its own chunk of 5K, which is bundled down as 1.6K. So there was some benefit here, and actually, you know what? Let's pop open Paint. I think I still have that screenshot on the clipboard. Maybe? No. I've copied and pasted something since then. We've gone down by 2K here, which means that 2K was probably moved somewhere here, right? Because this was 300K. So there's probably 2K somewhere in here. Or maybe we just lost 2K because of the way things were bundled. They're different. I think this is smaller. Well, I know this is smaller because we moved a whole bunch out. The main, I think it grew a little bit because stuff that was here went into main. And I remember this being right around 20K. Maybe it was 22K. I don't remember. Let's scroll back up. We can look. When was this one built? I don't know why anytime I type IN, my fingers want to type ING. Probably because that's the most common, verb ending. But if we look, no, this has to be the same build because the numbers match up. Let's go higher. Well, one thing that I'm noticing, look at server.mjs here. And let's look at it down here. That small change, notice now that server bundles, we don't have a 1 megabyte bundle anymore. So there was a win there, right? So data, like using the data, there was a win. Okay, I'm back into the beginning. So here we go. Here was the original bundle sizes, and let's look at the paint, right? So we dropped by 7K on this bundle size. This bundle size, we can say, we're within tolerances, right? It dropped by a little bit, but, and again, this one we could probably say, I don't know, they got smaller. The styles, like, why would the styles get smaller? I don't know. Because we didn't change anything styles wise. Did we? We took out all of the pre. We did. We took out all of the pre, so that probably means that Tailwind didn't need to build the pre styles anymore. This one grew slightly. This is a new bundle. This is the common bundle, right? This bundle's the same size. This is the same size. These are all the same size. And then if we look down here, so this bundle grew slightly, which probably is why some of these shrunk, right? This one grew slightly, so again, wait, no, these are shrinking, right? Yeah, these are shrinking. Never mind. No, 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 no. Yes, they grew, right? So these three have grown slightly. This one shrunk though, and so did this one. And so did no, this one grew and this one stayed the same. So just by removing common, the bundle optimizer was watch the F1 race. See, F1 racing is something that is fascinating to me, but I've never really gotten into it. The most F1 racing I've ever watched, and why I even know anything about F1 racing, is there's a YouTuber, Quill18, and every once in a while he'll play like this F1 racing simulator. And for whatever reason, I find it really zen to watch and love it. So I may have to just watch F1 racing. But the thing about watching it in a simulation is that the races can be so sped up. Those F1 races can take a while, right? Changing the compilation target, no. What we did is we went into our bundles and we found everywhere we were referring to common, in the initial chunk, and we took that reference to common out. And in doing that, we were able to influence the way that Angular built the bundles, right? So this chunk right here we identified in the bundle as being the common bundle now. So this is common. So Angular common. When you import from Angular common, it's going to be coming from this bundle. Instead of originally it was bundled here um, in this giant bundle that included like Angular core and stuff like that, and then main had router and stuff in it. Um, it's moved everything around because it's able to, you know, make some decisions, um, and it was able to move some stuff into the chunks down here, which is good. The lazy chunks are a good place to have stuff from here move down to here. Even if these chunks get bigger, this movement means that this code will only be loaded when it needs to be loaded. This code is going to be loaded when the page initially loads. I used to love sitting watching F1. Admittedly, I was normally hungover after a good Saturday night. Yeah, the movie wasn't high on my list. I ought to be doing 20. These days, I can't find to sit down and watch a race, although I would love to get out the racing wheel and more and sit down and play F1. F1, so like my Zen game, the one that I absolutely like when I really want to be Zen, is Farming Simulator. I've never broken down. Yes, we are doing SSR stuff too. Um, I've never broken down and bought like a heavy equipment wheel. I had a racing wheel back in the Xbox days when I was big into. Um, so if you guys don't know, for a while I was really big into racing cars. And so I had a Ford Focus at the time, um, and you know I put wheels on it. I'd done all sorts of stuff to the engine, you know, flywheels, just all sorts of crazy stuff to this car. And part of that is I was big into Gran Turismo, because that was the big racing game at the time. Right now it's Forza, um, and so I had broken down and gotten you know a racing setup with pedals and clutches and shifters and you know a steering wheel, just because it allowed me to do some practice. And you know one of the places where it really helped was with the lights, like the Christmas tree, right? Getting better at the Christmas tree was one of the things that video games helped with. Yeah, PlayStation, right? I have Xbox now. Well, I've always been Xbox because, like my brothers and stuff, we play on live together, and it's always been easier to do Xbox Live than the PlayStation stuff. I think PlayStation's gotten better, but Xbox Live was just way easier from way back when. So we've always just played Xbox together. Um, yeah, GT is gaining back, and GT was an amazing game. Um, so yeah, you know, I love fast cars, and the craziness of having a vehicle that's so light and so powerful that they have to put wings on it to suction it to the track. That I mean, thinking about I mean, it's not like the car would just take off and fly, right? Because it doesn't have any propulsion in the air. But what you would have some catastrophic messes, and you see those in F1, right? Um, the new Forza Motorsport is a total failure. I haven't played the new Forza. The most Forza I get into anymore is the arcadey stuff. So the Horizons. Horizons is a lot of fun and scratches a lot of itches that I have with like racing. Um, and it's simulation enough that like turns and braking can matter, but it's not simulation enough where I really have to get into it and worry about it. So, um, but I haven't played the new Forza Motorsport at all. I haven't played since five, maybe four or five. I think they're up to seven or eight, right? Yeah, the Horizons are so much fun. And the one, like the newest one in Mexico, oh man, like I lived in Guatemala, and like some of those jungle areas are very reminiscent of Guatemala, and especially when you start adding in like the ruins and stuff like that. Um, I hiked into a couple places in the jungle where there were ruins and not a lot of tourists, and it, it's just amazing to just be hiking and then see like these ancient structures that the forest has just taken over. Maybe I'll have to dig into some of my pictures and see if I can find some of the pictures and show you guys just like what the jungle can do to just ancient buildings and stuff. So, but anyway, I need to end. Gone over by just a little bit, but I don't feel bad because I skipped Thursday. Um, thank you guys. We had some discussions about optimization and when it makes sense and when it doesn't. And I think those discussions are really important, um, because, one of the things that I want to prepare you guys for is, as you watch these streams is discussions that you'll have as you get more senior. And one of the big discussions that you'll have as a senior is like bundle sizes, right? And being able to go in and analyze the data that we did today and show, hey, this was a win, or hey, it doesn't make sense to get more aggressive because the win won't overcome the network latency, right? Things like that are super important. And thank you, Marcus. I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your Sunday. I know some of you, your Sunday is probably over. And if you're in Australia, it's already Monday. So you guys have a great Monday. And we will see you guys tomorrow evening at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Um, I need to come up with something to do. We may just um, work on finalizing the forms. I really, I don't know. I need to end, but I've got some ideas. We'll talk to you guys